Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the HOLOCRON Chronicles. This is episode 117 over on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your humble host, X-Wing pilot extraordinaire, and my number one, my co-pilot seems to be dressing the part today. If you're watching us on YouTube, which I don't happen to be, that would be Peter Stein. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, and we have an extra special guest. And Peter, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first guest that you brought to the table, which I'm super psyched about, particularly since we kind of soft rebooted the show and doing things our own way. But this is Alex. Alex, is it Camp or Campy?
It's Camp.
Camp. Ooh, Camp. He's very camp. Of the exceptional Chaotic Good Coffee, Comics, and Games down in Lexington, Kentucky. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on here and talk Star Wars.
Awesome. And that's exactly what we're going to do this time around. We have reached the Trinity in the Lucas-directed films, and this is the last one for a long time. But we are going to move forward and obviously cover the rest of the trilogy, the original trilogy, because that would be silly. But we will be talking 1977 Star Wars today. We're going to do it in a little bit more of a 10,000-foot view, because going through the plot points of view, and there isn't an unborn fetus in this world that doesn't know the plot of Star Wars. It's like covering Batman or Spider-Man's origin in a movie. Just don't. You know what I'm saying? Just don't. But Alex, a tradition on all of our Secret War shows is that we kick things off by asking you, in particular, about Star Wars here. How did Star Wars first come into your life?
So the special edition release of A New Hope is the first theater experience I actually remember in my
memory.
I don't think it wasn't my first movie experience, as I'm told by my parents, but it is the first one that I have still lasting memory of. And I think I've loved it since then.
That is excellent. I love it. My first theater experience, and this dates me because I'm way older than obviously both of you guys, was The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. Wow. I've told the story many, many times, so I'm not even going to waste it. It was my dad, my brother, and I, and it was before really movie trailers were prevalent. So we sat looking, I'll never forget it. It was a white picket fence out of focus. That was the screensaver in this theater in Detroit where I grew up. I know, it's great stuff.
Love that.
I know. And another holdover from having somebody new on the show, and this was at Peter's insistence, and I'm glad he did. My former recording partner, Mark, coined the question, if you lived in the Star Wars universe, a place of great danger and mystique, etc., what's a amusing or humorous way that you would be killed? Take it away.
I think I would finally worked hard enough to finally get myself and my family to somewhere more prosperous, then the Death Star would show up on Alderaan.
Of course. I plot of 40 acres here in the forest in Alder. Hey, what's that? Oh, I didn't know they had the full moon during the day on this planet. Oh, son of a...
Yep. That seems exactly what my luck would give me.
Oh, man. We made it. We didn't make it. Oh. Yep. Oh, my gosh. That might be the name of the episode. We'll see what happens. That's something else. Usually when Peter and I are making an episode, something entertaining that is said to the course of the episode will end up being the name of the episode. Yeah. So I might go scribble that one in. Well, cool. Well, we'll get into talking about the Star Wars, its original title, in a moment here. But as always, we'd like to give love, respect, and esteem to the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at Secret Friends Unite. Patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Blah, blah, blah. You get exclusive programs, early shows, Discord benefits, and the first week for free. So you're losing money by not trying it, and you're also losing money if you sign up by not getting your first month half off, which is a real bonus. And you can also stick around for as little as $2 a month. So think about it: free for a week, $1 for a month, $2 going forward. Just do it. Just do it. You'd be very entertained, particularly by our Spotlight show. Peter and I and other people in the program have done a lot of great interviews with people in the pop culture space, whether it be Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel Comics, lots of different folks. Folks like this are on board. Derek Trevelyan, my buddy, the figure dude who whipped both Peter and I in pickleball several times this week. Francie, who does my wife's hair. Luke Lore, Mr. Xbox Expansion Pass, and my uncle Tim down there in South Haven, Michigan. We appreciate all of you. Also, John Sedorf, Brendan Myers, Corey in HD, Matthew Keel, Kurt Krug, my buddy, who helps me find a lot of those connections by which we get those interviews. Tanya Lee, Chipotle Bear, Famous Seamus, Jay Newport 007, Cam the Movie Man, Brian Osterman, a.k.a. Darth Prozac, and Mr. Freight Conductor. Very grateful for all of you. Thank you for your patronage. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Free week, half off the first month, and $2 to keep things rolling. Now, Peter jumped in and did let us know there's a trailer out there now for the new Lego special that we're going to have this fall, which we will be covering. I was not aware. I did not watch it, so I don't want to bullshit my way through it, because I think that would be a disservice to try to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, let's just kind of jump right on in there if nobody has other objections. Part 3 of the directing career of George Walton Lucas Jr., his full name, Walton, being Indiana Jones' middle name, too. Don't know if I pointed that out before, but it is the case. This film was called The Star Wars, more commonly known as A New Hope to the rest of us, in 1977. Epic space opera, written by George Lucas, obviously. Lucasfilm, 20th Century Fox, the first film in the franchise that would change everybody's lives, so on and so forth. These things are known. Obviously, set in a fictional galaxy under the rule of the tyrannical Galactic Empire, the film follows a resistant movement called the Rebel Alliance, who aim to destroy the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. Cast includes Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Peter Cushing, Sir Alec Guinness, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Peter Mayhew, David Prowse, and James Earl Jones. Lucas had the idea for a science fiction film in the vein of Flash Gordon around the time he completed our very first episode reviewing THX 1138 in 1971. Very interesting film. He began working on treatment after the release of American Graffiti, which we talked about in our last episode. Star Wars suffered production difficulties. The cast and crew believed the film would be a failure, and it went $3 million over budget due to delays and almost killed Lucas. That's pretty famous. He had a panic attack that almost killed him. Very few people were confident in the film's box office prospects. It was released in a small amount of theaters in the United States on May 25, 1977, quickly coming up on 50 years ago, which is completely insane. Became a surprise blockbuster hit, leading it to being expanded to a much wider release. It opened to universal acclaim, praised for its groundbreaking special effects, grossing $410 million worldwide during its initial run, which, if I'm not mistaken, was over a year. Because back in those days, people didn't have VHS tapes or DVDs or Blockbuster or streaming like we have now. You just went to the theater and watched something. That was it. This surpassed Jaws of 1975 to become the highest grossing film in the world until the release of E.T. the Extraterrestrial in 1982. Often regarded as one of the greatest and most influential films of all time, Star Wars quickly became a worldwide pop culture phenomenon, launching a tie-in of products, as we all know, novels, comics, video games, amusement park attraction, and merchandise, such as toys, games, and clothing. It's also widely known to have created the modern action figure industry by creating the 3 3/4-inch action figure because of the because of the 1970s oil crisis. It's a lot easier to make a figure this big than a figure this big, if you're looking at me, 3 3/4 versus 12-inch tall figure. The Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry in 1989, and its soundtrack was added to the U.S. National Recording Registry in 2004. Whew, that was a lot of words I just said. Holy cow. And being that everybody in the world knows this story, like I said, not an immature ovum out there that isn't watching Star Wars in there somewhere and knows everything that's going on. We're not going to go through the story beats because it's not necessary. But what we are going to do, and I'm going to kick it to Alex first, is to talk about some of the things that we find most interesting about the film, not only when it came out and its influences and things of that nature, which Alex is going to cover, but I'm going to talk about how has the film itself evolved between 1977 and present day. So Alex, I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell us about Star Wars.
Well, all right. That's a fun intro that I just get to go tell us about Star Wars. I'm like, oh, where do you begin? But that, I think, goes to how amazing it was. Because you have that question, where do I begin? The world building of it is fantastic. Because we think we've all either read stories, watched things where it feels like things are only happening because of the characters we follow. What I love about Star Wars is you take Luke and Han out of it, the plot will continue, just in a very bad way. It's this world will move outside of your main characters, which I think it helps to make it feel lived in, and it helps, that suspension of disbelief, because this feels more real. And then going on to it, that the influence of Kurosawa that Lucas is, the name Jedi comes from the Jedi Kurosawa work, and that A New Hope is essentially Hidden Fortress with a World War II dogfight at the end of it, which is really cool, including there's some shots that are almost exact. Like, there is an argument can be made that A New Hope is a reimagining of Hidden Fortress, which I think is really cool, especially since Kurosawa is probably one of the most influential filmmakers in cinema, because once he started doing all that stuff in Japan, people saw it and took it. So many of how the cinematography is done, all that, a lot of it comes from Kurosawa. So you have this entire universe that is kind of hokey, pulpy, and, kind of foreign, but set in a way that is super familiar. So now people can easily just get on board. It's like, okay, I know this kind of feels right. Okay, we have this kind of farm guy doing this thing. Things like the tropes and everything are like, we have a mentor. I know exactly what this sort of character does. And it is the most basic plotline. It is literally the story of a farm boy taking the rogue with a mentor to go rescue a princess from an evil wizard. Like, at the end of the day, that is what Star Wars is. It is the most copy-paste fantasy story that's there. But it's done in such a fun way that it stands out and it's unique. Which, in the way that Minecraft took over the video game world, you take a simple concept, do it to 1,000%, and it's popular. Surprising. And just going on that they were able to set so many beats in there. Like just dropping, there's this thing called the Clone Wars. It's a one-off line in the movie that could never have been mentioned again. But it then allowed for an entire plot point going into the prequels, an entire spin-off series that people still want to know more about. That's still probably one of the coolest things that George has come up with. And it feels epic. It feels grand. You get the sense of scale in just the opening shot of the Tantive V4 coming in. You're like, that's a cool spaceship. And then you get the scale of the Star Destroyer. Like, this world is different. And you are going up against trouble.
I remember, and it's funny, my dad, my mom and my dad separately, I kind of got Star Trek from, though it took me a little older to get into it. But my dad, not a huge sci-fi guy otherwise, but I do remember him talking about Star Wars when I was young. He says, man, I went to go see that movie. And of course, he's an adult by this point. I had been born. I was born in 76. This came out in 77. And he was like, just seeing that first shot of this one ship flying, and there's like laser bolts flying back and forth, and this other huge ship. I was like, oh my, what is happening? It was just so like anything, and unlike anything you'd ever seen before.
And how they go and they set up that initial thing. They get in there. You have your guys just trying to fight, and you can see how scared they are, like trying to hold that door. The door breaks open. Up until, the Death Star scene of that first movie, stormtroopers are actually dangerous. Yep. Like, the joke line that we all laugh about now of Obi-Wan saying only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. If you've only seen that first hour, right, it's a true statement. They came in, wrecked shop, took over the ship, and moved on. Like, It was efficient. So it shows really good, like, this is bad news. And one thing I think is also pretty genius on there, they didn't show the Emperor in the first one. That it's not like one of those, your plucky band takes out the huge thing in, an afternoon. This was just one branch of it. Like, if they won and nothing... Like, it was a setback, but it didn't stop anything. Yeah,
it didn't change much. Right.
Which sets up perfectly for the Empire Strikes Back of, okay, that was annoying, but we can still punch you in the mouth.
Yeah.
And it was... And I think that helps it, that makes it seem like, this ever-ending empire. You can do a win, but that doesn't mean you won. Like, winning the battle and versus the war is really real in that. And it makes it seem like an all-in galaxy-encompassing empire can actually be real. Because it would have made it... Because sometimes, like, on the more modern ones, things seem so small and contained. You didn't really get that in A New Hope. You feel the expanse of this universe, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Just chipping away at the big, you're the thorn in the paw of the lion. You know what I mean? Yeah, he may pull it out, but he's got other paw. He's got another paw on the other hand. He could still tear you down. And yeah, that's your right. And obviously our next episode, we'll get into The Empire Strikes Back and figuring like, hey, it's not like Star Wars was all happy slappy and sunshine and farts by the time it was over. They had this big victory, and it was funny because I was, of course, like you guys, I watched it again this week just to feel prepared. And I'm watching that last scene and I'm thinking, and it was even covered in a canon related comic during the Marvel run 2015 plus, where they had to evacuate immediately because the Empire still knew they were there. So like 20 minutes later, 200 Star Destroyers are going to show up and just bombard the planet. But you know what? Let's stop. Let's have a big ceremony. Let's have, the gag is that, let's get drunk. Let's have a big party afterwards. Or they had a big party the night before. And that's where Leia lost Chewbacca's medal. Like that's the hack bit that people do about it. But I mean, to your point, they did a bit. They put a Band-Aid, or it was the finger in the dike, as it were, little Dutch boy, you know what I mean? The finger in the dam, put a little Band-Aid over it, but it's still this 5,000 foot tall. It's still the Hoover Dam. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's the Hoover Dam of badness. Ooh, I could make the name of that, but I like just do it 1,000%. That's the current name of the episode. Peter, you've not had a chance to say much. Let's talk about
this. Happens a lot when we hang out.
Peter's a great dude. He's very even keel. I think that's why we work so well together, because he's even keel and I'm all blah blah. But Peter, I mean, let's have some of your thoughts. I mean, thinking about what Alex said, and just kind of your thoughts overall. Like, where are you landing with this film?
So I was kind of looking when I rewatched it. I was kind of looking at the acting. Just to see like the difference in how kind of like a peripheral, because I mean I don't do a lot of directing, but like a peripheral idea of like how George was using some of these actors. And like you can tell, at least for me, I could tell the difference between, say, the younger and experienced actors and then someone like Alec Guinness. There's a lot more subtlety going on. Like the moment where like one of the ones that was quite, like, every time I see it, it's still really good. Is like he's headed for that small moon, and you just see his face just fall.
His eyes get as big.
It has mostly to do with how, like, a lot of how he controls specifically around his eyes.
Oh, okay.
And there's just a lot of very interesting, like, a lot of like, oh no, that Alec Guinness pulls off really, really well. And there's a really interesting one that happens, I noticed, with Tarkin, with Peter Cushing, when Vader comes in and is like, Obi-Wan's no more, and you see like just the subtlest eyebrow raise on Tarkin, which we know when we add all of the canon stuff in later, that becomes a very like, But just even that moment, and Peter Cushing you didn't have all of that backstory between Anakin and Obi-Wan. You just had the Vader doesn't like Obi-Wan and killed him. But still there's that just so slight eyebrow raise of Tarkin going like, oh, you killed him, did you? We could have gotten more information out of him. So there's just some really interesting like subtleties that go on in the acting.
Well,
go ahead.
Let's say, well, they said that in interviews that the young cast took it more seriously when they were in the same scene with Alec Guinness or Peter Cushing.
Yeah, and you can tell like it makes it like there's a big difference in the feel, like the scene with Luke and Obi-Wan in the hut, like that's very well done because he's bouncing off of Alec Guinness, and Alec Guinness is treating this like, I am, I'm a big deal actor, but my character is a big deal, right?
Kind of a big deal. He was the Ron Burgundy of Star Wars. Oh, there's the new name of the episode.
But it was like you always hear the talk about how it changed, but then I was actively paying attention to that, and it was quite, you could tell, like, it doesn't mean the other scenes are bad by any stretch, but you can just tell there's a difference in how people hold themselves and the type of reactions that you get out of them and that sort of thing,
especially when it's like just scenes with Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, because he was not taking it seriously at all.
Especially the scene in the cockpit.
Oh yeah.
I have loved over the years watching the screen tests and seeing all the people brought in. They had, an actress named Terry Nunn, who I don't know, but he had William Catt read for Luke Skywalker. You had Kurt Russell read for Han Solo. And I do love, and I love Mark Hamill. I've always loved Mark Hamill. He was my first pop culture idol as a child. But
Best Joker, fight me.
Yeah. Never. God, well, there's been some bad Jokers, so that's okay. But we don't need to talk about that. We'll get into that another time. But, when he comes in and he said, a great bit he does with Harrison Ford that he says, hey, my objection at the time when we got out of the trash compactor was, hey, wouldn't my clothes be wet if I just got out of the murky water? And Harrison Ford goes, not that kind of movie, kid. Very famous line. Yeah. Or Mark Hamill says, on my deathbed I'll remember this line from my screen test. And then he says, he rabbles through it, and even I can't remember. He says they're blah blah blah, Aqualish and Solus and this thing and that thing, and their defense is largely based along a large scale invasion. He says it's one of these, George, you can write it, but you just, nobody can say it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, you're right. They were taking it seriously, but at the same time, they were like, Harrison Ford was 30 and Mark Hamill was 22 and Carrie Fisher was 19. She was a child. Yeah. And they're just like, we're doing this thing. We're in England. Maybe it'll be a big deal. Maybe it'll be a flop. And then everybody's lives change, even though it was Harrison Ford who became the big star, which I just very fondly remember from, I drift back to the Family Guy spoofs, and he says, hello, I'm Harrison Ford, I'm Han Solo. He says, I'm the blah, 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 and I'm the only actor in here whose career won't be destroyed by this movie. It's absolutely the truth.
Screen, yes. I would say between voice acting and stage, Mark Hamill did pretty good, because he went on to start in like Amadeus and stuff like that. Yeah. He found the stage as his. Yeah,
I mean, I've met a lot of actors in the last few years doing this show, and people Peter and I are interviewing, we always throw it to them and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, I'm on this show, blah, 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 or I did this, or we'll look at their IMDb or something and to talk to them about something that maybe we don't know about that they were in. And, it's a job like it is for any of us. Most of us change jobs, and sometimes things don't work out. It's just their jobs can change week to week or month to month or year to year in a way that's kind of unpredictable. So, yeah. Anyway, yes. Now we were talking about rambles and tangents. That was probably a tangent on my part. So back to you, Peter.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I got going on to like the actors taking it seriously and not. There's one scene that I think it actually benefited that is going to easily transition to what you want to talk about. The scene with Han and Greedo.
Mm-hmm.
Because
so much controversy.
Because Han being able to really go into I can be this kind of cool gunslinger, and he just kind of played that up a little bit, because like that seemed to be the one thing that he actually seemed to have some fun in. Right. I get to be this fast shooting guy. All right, let's do this. Yeah, I'm having my Western thing that I probably grew up with. Is one thing that I get to now do this in the space Western saloon.
Right.
And I think that adds to that scene of just how casual he is of I'm just buying time, but
pew, yeah, or pew, or pew. We'll get into that in a minute.
And then walks away and flips him a coin. Sorry for the mess, and just walks out.
I do love, and something I'll cover is how in later cuts they added a sizzle.
Yeah, in the original special edition, there's a sizzle.
Like it's bacon, but we'll get into that later. But
what does fried Greedo smell like?
Oh,
bad.
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, like I said, Harrison Ford is eating up
fried Rodian. Yeah.
Yeah, he's act up eating in that scene, but he's obviously doing his lines to I think it was a woman in like a weird face with an animatronic like snout that flips up and down.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously when they were doing his coverage and shooting him, he was delivering his lines to just not that, because I would find it to be harder to kind of really get into it or maybe take it at all seriously when you're talking to somebody in the back flipping a mouth switch or whatever. I don't know. It was bizarre.
But I think it goes for it that he wasn't taking this threat seriously, and it shows.
Yeah,
that goes to like how like, oh yeah, I'm that plucky scoundrel. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
I have a guy pointing a gun at my chest, and I don't care because I know I can beat him. sort
I
of
know.
thing.
Yep.
Or can he? He ultimately does, but it does happen a bunch of different ways. We'll talk about that in a second. Other thoughts, Alex, before we kind of move on? I'll get talking about my opus of the changes.
And just going that the influence of Star Wars, it's so wild how certain things just kind of take over. And you can never plan it. All you can do is try to make your vision and hope people like it.
Right.
And make something that the passion's in there, and you'll see the dividends. Or if you don't get lucky, you won't. But you can't force it to happen. And I think that goes that studio, you can find like recently studios that force it.
Yeah.
It's so different than when there's just something that is.
Warner Brothers and DC with Snyder is the greatest example. What can we cram in? Because the other guy did it better and he's having a bunch of success. I can do it too. You can't. You can't. And even if they did it the same that Marvel did, you don't know that they're going to. It's like the Superman movie was very successful this summer. We're recording this in the summer of 2025. But, James Gunn, not to go on a James Gunn tangent, decided he had his vision. And it's not about the characters, it's about the business and how to plan it out and how to go step by step and have it grow into something the way that the people at Marvel did. And even the Marvel early on, it wasn't like there was this singular studio and the singular vision. It was a bunch of things that happened to happen right together, and it gelled in the end and then blossomed into something that took over the world.
Which is weird. Because I'd argue that phase one ones, even though they're with different studios, was the most cohesive together when it comes to the actual lived-in world of the MCU.
Yeah, somehow you're right. Somehow it did, even though that first block was like, here's the Hulk movie and here's Iron Man and here's. You're right. Somehow they made it all work. But anyway, we're off topic as usual. But that's how podcasting
Par
works.
for the course.
Par for the course. Peter, any final thoughts before I start getting into the nuts and bolts here?
Other than this movie is, even though we know it as the first part of a trilogy, it is fairly self-contained in a way that makes it superior to a lot of films that come out now, in the sense that you don't have to sit there in the end and be like, oh man, now I have to go watch another one, or I have to watch something else. Not that like this would cause you to do that because it's a good movie and you want to see where the story goes,
right?
But
you don't have to.
But you don't have to. Where it's like there is a clear beginning, middle, and end, and it leaves stuff for there to be more. Right? The Empire's not defeated. Darth Vader gets away. Like there's a lot of
the only sequel bait is Darth Vader didn't die.
Yeah,
and they showed him getting away.
Yeah,
and that is the closest it comes.
And that's it, because he doesn't get blown out of the sky. So they left it open, and those are the kinds of endings that I really appreciate. Where it's like, if there's a sequel, great, but we're not sequel fishing. And there's a lot of, I am not going to point names I'm not going to point names or name fingers, but there's a lot of stuff now where it's like, we have to have a sequel. We have to create a franchise. And George Lucas wasn't looking in this first one. He had a whole large story that he was thinking of, but it wasn't the goal to create a franchise. The goal was to make the film and see what happened.
Well, franchises just didn't really exist.
No, they didn't.
Outside of James Bond.
TV.
Yeah, James Bond.
I mean, there were TV series, and I think James Bond had 3 films by now.
By the 70s? No, James Bond movie started in 62. So there were 5.
But it wasn't tons yet.
Yeah, then they switched over to Roger Moore. I'm going to say at least.
Yeah, because 70s
7 and 10.
Because 70s was Roger Moore, right? Mid 70s.
I just don't remember when the Bond films fell in. But so we didn't have film franchises per se, so that wasn't the mindset.
Right.
Whereas now you can see that you have that. So I think that's it adds to the timelessness of the original Star Wars film. I think,
and I'm going to go back to my butt kissing of James Gunn. Hopefully somehow he hears this and he wants to do an interview with Peter and me. No, but I thought Superman 2025 did a great job of that, because they gave you a little this other thing could happen because here's Supergirl coming in at the end, but it wasn't like, oh, well, you won't get any, the real satisfaction in this movie is watching the next one. And the real satisfaction in that one is watching the one after that. So it's just, yeah, you're stuck in this never ending loop of never being able to experience a complete story.
Yeah, you don't get that satisfaction of like,
I blame Harry Potter and Twilight for starting the trend of the part 1, part 2 thing, and then people will do it, and they started doing that for like everything. I'm making movies that are not part 1 in name, but they are part 1.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So, all right. So for my part, I was always very interested in it. And of course, I'll probably do something similar for the other two films, but the evolution of this film was, I think, a little bit more expansive than the others. But anyway,
more than the other ones. It was this one and Jedi that got the most changes, and this one more so than Jedi.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So the most obvious, so this film was released in 77, came out again in 81. In 1997 was a special edition, just like what Alex was talking about. We got a DVD release in 2004, and then we got a Blu-ray release in 2011, and then we've got a streaming release on Disney Plus in 2019. And per my research, that is pretty much the parts that exist. And Peter's going to jump in and talk about something that I didn't really notice once we get to the special editions. So do remember when this film came out, I think, and I didn't write this down, but the biggest part of it is that the 77 release had an opening crawl, but it did not have a name. It was just crawl. It is a period of Civil War. That's where we got started. And that changed. And it was the name of the film was The Star Wars, I think. I don't know if the poster behind me, of course, the name of it is Behind Stuff. So I'm not sure if that says Star Wars or The Star Wars. Probably. Yeah, that one
was
is
just Star Wars.
It was Star Wars. All it was Star Wars.
Yeah, but in the 81 release, so I did take some notes and I went through and pulled this from probably Wikipedia, but I really thinned it out for things that I felt like, oh, they use this alternate take and blah blah blah. Or this door slam was a different noise. I didn't really care about that. But first one is for the 81 release, the line Episode 4: New Hope was added to the opening crawl. Which is most noticeable alteration, but the entire crawl was done Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, they did this because in 1980, The Empire Strikes Back came out, and I'd have to verify it, but I would assume that was titled
Episode 5
at that time. But again, without looking, I'll have to verify it next week. So this retrospectively, and again, in the 80s, and I remember I was 7 or 8 when I first saw a home recording device with a videotape. So the only way people were seeing anything was if you were rich, you had one of those projectors like you had in elementary, and this probably means nothing to you guys. So they had projectors in elementary schools that were real. That's, if somebody was rich, if you ever see like a movie either from the 50s or set in the 50s, that's how rich people are watching movies at home. They have a thing and a screen and they're showing it that way. But yeah, we normal human beings did not watch movies not at the movie theaters unless it was on television, which, network television then would pick these up. And I don't think the first Star Wars showing even of this film was maybe till the mid 80s. I could be wrong. That did.
I think you're right.
I found one on Internet Archive from I think 84. So
that's what I was thinking. So coin the classic phrase of Spock from Star Trek V. That did not come up in my research, Captain. But yes, so that was significant change from the 81 release, where things really ramp up is obviously in 1997 with those special edition releases. So we'll jump in. Peter's got an interesting one. Peter, do yours first because it kind of colors everything. Kind of colors everything else I'm going to say.
Yeah. So one thing that I remember noticing as a kid, and I think it was in part because in the original VHS releases of the trilogy, there was like a beginning bit where they would talk about some of the changes. Because old VHS tapes had pre-roll stuff. And
the way they were meant to be seen, and they actually would come out of the frame at you.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. Because I remember watching, on the side note, on the original VHS release, there was like a Leonard Maltin interview with George Lucas on every single film. Yep. And I remember for a long time, we would just sit there and like, it's interesting. And then after we got a little older, we would fast forward. It's like, I just want to watch the spaceships.
This is boring.
I remember he finished it riding in the back of a golf cart with a couple people in Twilight makeup.
Yeah.
That's how it was ending.
Because it was ending right as they were working on Phantom Menace. And so just
right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, so the one of the things that they talked about big time, and I remember noticing it, was there was some major color correction done because obviously the films had faded and done some things as the 35 millimeter traveled, and so one of the big noticeable moments for me was in the first part of the film, after Darth Vader talks to Princess Leia, he walks away and an Imperial officer starts talking like, this is going to be a problem if anyone hears about it. And Vader's just like, yeah, well, we'll just tell them that everyone was killed. If you watch the original release of the film, that Imperial officer's uniform is more of a brown color, which then if you play some of the video games like Dark Forces, Jedi Knight, I think Rebel Assault, Imperial officers have brown uniforms. Wow. With the color correction, that uniform is black. So there's some really interesting, like, quick tweaks to, like, this is actually what they were wearing on set. This is actually what we were seeing. So
they were really going into the brown shirts, weren't they?
Yeah. But like it wasn't a brown shirt, which makes it that much more fascinating.
Faux brown shirt. New episode title. Faux brown shirt.
So it just goes to show that some of those color corrections, some of those edits, even though some of them, like the brown, may have been embedded in our cultural memory for a while, right? That wasn't the original vision, and so some of what George is doing is just correcting for mechanical failure in some of the transference of the story. And
definitely the special editions helped accomplish that. And one of the first notes I have, and it's interesting, since Disney took over and they brought the big axe down on the EU, and we don't need to talk about that, but they said, we're going to start fresh. They took a very Star Trek-ish kind of opinion of it. What's on the screen is what's canon. And this did something great because they did sneak in something that came from the EU, but I'll talk about it in a second. So, jumping in, I noticed this because again, Todd, my other partner, and I were at MSU. We were roommates in '97 when this came out. So we went to go see. It was like January was New Hope, February was Empire, and I think they either pushed Empire or Jedi, or Empire and Jedi back a few weeks because New Hope was blowing it up in the box office.
Yeah, they didn't push it far enough back for my dad, because we went to the theater expecting to go see A New Hope, and it was like, it's Empire, and he's like, you guys haven't seen it before. Screw it, we're gonna go see Empire. So the first Star Wars film I ever saw in the theater was Empire Strikes Back.
I didn't know that you and I had that same experience. So that, except for you saw a special edition, I saw the original. But you were a little older than I was, because I was 4 and you would have been 6 or 7 if I'm doing my math correctly. Yeah, there you go. So go ahead, please.
As I say, before we go into too many details, can I ask, what is everyone's opinions on the changes with the special editions before we talk about it? I want to get an overview.
I'm gonna probably onesie-twosie my way through it, but I'm gonna say more harm than good.
Ooh, I'm the opposite. I think outside of Mos Eisley and the Anakin changes, the changes are made for the better.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencaster's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to Zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
Maybe I'll feel better as we go along, but
that's generally where I fall. The Mos Eisley stuff is a little bit cluttered. And because there was just a little too much CGI added, it was like there is a lot going on in Mos Eisley anyway.
Yeah.
The third act is made infinitely better.
The dogfight is way more interesting.
I'm 100% with you. So
yeah, and the only thing, and I'm going to nitpick on it, a special edition to next special edition change.
We'll wait till we get
when
there.
we get to it, because there's one that's like.
Okay. So we had some early stuff. Sunset in the Canyon as R2-D2 walks has been redone, and I think that's positive. Yep. Stand crawler, several shots improved. Yep. I think that's positive. The bit that I was talking about, bringing what has essentially been uncanonized, making a canon, was the Sentinel-class landing craft that drops the stormtroopers off.
Yep.
Was never seen before, so my assumption is that does come from the EU, because where else would it?
Comes from the video games, I think.
Yeah, I didn't think it was original creation. We get back to kind of the most glaring thing, and we already talked about it, which would be Mos Eisley. In the 90s. Yeah, and the speeder as it goes through Mos Eisley. So this has been subsequently improved slightly, but back in 97, it was even to my eyes, it was like it's just
jarring.
Just don't. Little nice Easter eggs they stuck in were the little asp droids having the little droids going back and forth, and Dash Rendar from the Shadows of the Empire, which we've talked about extensively, and it's a very, very big part of our people my age who were adults at the time loving Star Wars in the late 90s. Canonizing Dash Rendar, although strictly speaking. There was nothing to actually say that it was him.
Where is he in the?
If you look at the little picture that I have in the notes, it's the little blob in the upper left-hand corner. That's him.
Oh, was it his ship?
Yeah, his ship. Yeah. His ship, which is the Outrider. But again,
okay, I must have just not noticed.
Strictly speaking, it was the ship. He wasn't on top of it going, "Hey guys!" So you don't actually know that it was, because again, it's saying like, "Oh, you saw my Honda CRV driving down the street. It was me." Well, it could just be a CRV unless it has my license plate on it. You know what I mean? So people were jumping, but we don't need to dwell on Dash Rendar. I think there have been other things that have canonized him in addition to this, but we can dig into that at a later time.
I also like what they did with Luke's speeder, because all the shots in the desert in the old ones, basically using just grainy film to cover up the wheels.
The force field.
It just is so much cleaner.
Okay.
Now in the special edition, because it actually feels like, okay, this thing is actually using like maglev or whatever they're calling for the anti-gravity stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Repulsor or mag.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I think that's what they call it in Star Wars too, or Star Trek as well. Now we get to the famous Greedo. Now, this ignited a controversy which may never die, and it's coming up on 30 years since this has been out. But very famously, as Alex was talking about earlier, a very cool, calm, and collected Han Solo shoots Greedo under the table as they're sitting at a table in the cantina, as Greedo is trying to collect on him as a bounty, and makes the cardinal mistake of, I'm reminded of the line that Falcon said in the Captain America Civil War. I don't know if you've been in a lot of fights, but there's usually not this much talking. He should have just taken him away. It would have been that big of a problem. But yes, they did this. Greedo shoots first, hitting the wall behind Han, and then Han shoots him. This will be addressed later on as being changed, as will the next thing that we address, where Han leaves there and he encounters Jabba the Hutt, who is the villain in the first act of the Empire, or excuse me, Return of the Jedi, as a completely CGI'd character adapted from some film that was shot and not used in the 77 of an Irish actor, heavyset man, walking around talking to Han. That film footage exists somewhere. I'm not sure the audio.
I've seen it. Yeah. The audio does exist. You can find it.
And yeah, the early add-on of Jabba is cool for shock value, but it's kind of like looking at Mos Eisley in this day and age. It's just like,
yeah, this is one that I have a little a bone to pick with, because as bad as the original 1977 CGI was, if they had touched that up, it would have been better.
Yeah,
because what they then went in the next version is they took the CGI model that they had used in the Phantom Menace. Right, and stuck that version in, which doesn't look anything like
jarring.
The Jabba the Hutt that we see in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
I get it, but it's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
The fun thing is they added Boba Fett in.
They did, which then obviously proves that the character was then created at the same time as the other characters, which you wouldn't necessarily know about.
No, he was created for Empire. They rotoscoped him in for the special edition.
Now I understand.
But that was originally created as like a Captain Phasma specialty stormtrooper, rather than being an external bounty hunter. He was the screen test. He was all white like stormtrooper armor.
I was, you know what? Thank you for educating me, because I thought he was part of that footage. I know that obviously the holiday special, which we're going to talk about before the end of the year, gave us what is, and it has been. I don't know, you would call it canonized, because you can watch it on Disney Plus.
Lots of parts of it that have been, but
parts of it, this and that. But we don't need to get into all that. So thank you for correcting me. I guess in my brain I thought, he was filmed that way, but I also do know that he was Captain Phasma. He was the white glove stormtrooper, as it were.
That's exactly what he was.
Yeah. So one thing I absolutely loved in the Death Star, when Han and Solo were chasing the stormtroopers, they round a corner, instead of just putting them in a regular corner, he backed them into this big landing bay with all this CGI stuff added in.
That was great change.
Thumbs up, big
change. It made it make so much more sense, because I remember as a kid, it was like, they're just running up into a wall. What's going on?
You bypassed the most important change of the special editions. The adding of the bonk of the stormtrooper hitting his head on the door.
I think that was in here and I nixed it. Was it part of this or part of the next one? It must have been part of this, and I cut it out. My apologies. See, that's why we're doing this together. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting here reading it.
The bonk is important.
The bonk is important. I would make that.
That's a good title name.
But I think it's a little racy, and we might not pass. One thing that would have been a simple fix, and it wouldn't have been a problem if they would have just dubbed it with the same dude. When Han and Chewie are running, and the guy goes, "Close the blast doors," because the original thing was simply them jumping through some closing doors, and the guy says, "Open the blast doors, open the blast doors." Had they simply redubbed it to be the same guy saying the line, so if they would have dubbed it in 97 and the same guy, I probably wouldn't have had any problem with it. But because it's very obviously a different dude, that always rubbed me the wrong way. You know what I'm saying?
I just thought it was a different trooper doing it, because there's like 5 of them.
That is fair. When the mouths don't move, you can say it was 2 different guys.
But in my brain, I thought, they just took a cheap way. Like, there's only one dude talking. But you know what you say is also fair. So we're gonna agree.
Another random note that I thought was pretty neat, because I remember noticing it in the changes when I saw it on screen, was the changing from the text that Obi-Wan is looking at from English to Arabish.
Yes, I have that as a note as well.
That was really neat.
I love the commitment to Arabish.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. In interest of moving on, actually, no, this is naturally the last third of the film. The third act of the film is the beautifully restored Death Star dogfight interactions. Probably more than half of which has been redone, and it's great. I mean, and again, you'll see in my notes what I have pictured is one of my favorite iconic images. I'll even make it bigger because I want to see it enormous. Is the entire Rebel forces. It's nice because you see them pick up, and it's added to the existing shot. You see them pick up and fly from the hangar bay, and then you see them in space all lined up. And now in the 77 release, they did as good as they could. It's little models, and they're hanging there.
Yep.
Yeah, they're just little dots. This is just beautiful. You also have a pan where you see it's Luke who's in front, which is weird. Why wouldn't the leader? He's the new guy. I did find it kind of annoying that later on in the film, when there's only 3 of them left, 3 X-Wings left, Luke takes over and Wedge says, "Right with you, boss." And I'm like, this kid has been here for 10 minutes. Why is he in charge? It's like if you work in the convenience store and the kid, the boss's son comes to work and now he's the boss. You know what I mean?
I would say, because I'm guessing Wedge knew Biggs really well.
Right.
And Biggs was like, no,
Luke's the better pilot.
He's the best
dude
of us. trust, and Biggs was like, yeah, let's do this sort of thing. And
yeah, fair. Wow, look at this. I love being put in my place, but not in a way that's mean.
I understand what you're talking about, but also, was Wedge already clipped at this point during the fight, or
not?
No,
yet.
That was during the trench run.
He got clipped out at the trench run,
and then he had to bug out, and then that's why he lived.
Yes.
Yeah, because at the end of it,
which Wedge? There's like 3 of them.
Yeah, the Wedge who was in the cockpit, not Faux Wedge or whatever. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
That wraps it up. Oh, and it did. James Earl Jones was added to the credits as the voice of Darth Vader, which did not exist.
Finally,
so that's good.
My favorite detail of that, in which we are talking about like that opening thing, and they're all flying up on there, seeing the actual pilots in the X-wings.
Yeah,
I know it's a little detail, but it really just kind of sells it.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
Yeah, it's not an opaque cockpit. You can see the pilots like checking instruments and doing.
It reminds me of, and I never do this show without bringing up Star Trek. In the opening credits of Star Trek: The Next Generation, that last shot with the Enterprise flying before it jumps into warp, they record a dude walking through the observation lounge, which faces the camera. It's just a guy going do 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 do. Alex, are you a Star Trek guy? I haven't even asked.
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Then you know what I'm talking about. We'll have you over on Code as well. You're now on that list of talent. Congratulations. oh shit.
All right. Well, Next Gen and Voyager are my areas that I would consider I know the most.
We're about to handle the last season of Voyager, and then we will have moved through every segment of the legacy shows, which I'm very excited about. So I will get you on for one of those, but we'll revisit that in a moment. Okay, jumping to the 04, and again, I want to pick up the pace to the 04 release. Our 2 really big, significant changes have to do with the Han and Greedo sequence changing again. Greedo shoots a few frames faster, but Han, there's another change coming in the next one. He shoots a little bit faster. It says Han and Greedo shoot at the exact same moment, but Greedo is still fractionally ahead. I guess they thought this would quell the debate for all times.
It did not.
It did anything but. So we're going to continue to move forward with that. Peter already talked about the fact that we get a new CG Jabba model, which matches the 1999 Phantom Menace model, which again doesn't make a ton of sense. Should have looked a hell of a lot more like what we're going to end up seeing, I think, a little bit further on down the road. It says this new version closely resembles the way Jabba looked in episode 1, which is still... I did like that the Dianoga, the creature in the trash compactor, does blink. He does. Goes click, click. I thought that was very cool. The Arabesh that Peter mentioned, that change happens here as opposed to last time, or at least that's what they said.
Okay.
So
cool. Good to know.
This says the audible bump was added to the infamous gaff, so that happens here.
Oh, that happens in this one. Okay,
that's what this says. But again, this was written by people like me, or people like us, so you never know. The update for 2011 and 2019. This is the single note that I had for 2011 and the first note I had for 2019. And this is something that my wife, April, and I, it particularly drives her nuts, but I like it too. In the scene after Luke has been dragged from the Tusken Raiders and they're starting to go through a speeder, R2-D2 is famously hiding in a little crevice. And in this release, in the 2019 release, they put rocks in front of him. And I wrote, fucking moronic, because it's dumb. And how the hell did he get in there? There's not enough space for him to shuffle his little robot body in there unless it was a tunnel or something. It was just, why did he do it?
It's the exact same thing of like the Ronto covering when they're getting pulled into the checkpoint. You can't see that. Or like, why are you covering the thing we're supposed to be seeing?
Right.
Oh, I do have a thing. Speaking of that scene, the changes of Obi-Wan's noise scream he's doing, and
I had that as a note as well.
I like the 97 one. I hate any of the other ones.
The new one is a weird woo sound.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Like, why? It was fine.
Yeah, it was a creature sound in 97, and now it's like What is this?
Yeah.
Where back in the in 77, he just made like it was almost like a bantha noise, wasn't it? It was like something. It was just like,
I think it was the same sound that was in the original
yeah.
and in the 97.
It's very
I like
much
that one better. That's
it's very much
sound.
Pickle Lane. Okay, and the last thing I have for the 2019 release, that's all I have for 2011. There's a new edit of the Han and Greedo confrontation. It's a new shot of Greedo saying McClunky, a word that we've never heard before, but which roughly translates to "I'll end you," based on what Sebulba said to Anakin and the Phantom Menace during their first confrontation. Just before he and Han fired each other, which is now shot towards each other at the same time, the shot of Greedo exploding has also been altered by removing the Greedo dummy and cutting earlier to the explosion cloud to give the impression that the explosion shot happened at the same. This is a lot of work. At the same angle, Han and Greedo fired at each other. Disney stated the change was done at the behest of George Lucas before the restoration shelved following Disney's purchase of Lucasfilm. Wow.
Here's the thing. If the only change they made was they took out Greedo shooting and just adding that, and then it's like, he said, "I'll end you," and that when gave Han the, "No, you won't," bam.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That would just have made sense.
Sure.
Like, just do that. Stop doing the weird other blaster thing. Just tell him, "I'm going to fucking kill you," and go, "No, you're not." Uno reverse card. And just leave that.
And McClunky wasn't captioned. So them telling us it roughly translates to "I'll end you" based on blah, blah. Nobody gets that. It just became a punchline. I think I had a friend at the time who would greet people, "Hey, how are you doing?" And McClunky to you. You know, I mean, so
it's in the Lego thing as well, where like Greedo shows up for a Christmas party and says McClunky. It's like, okay,
right. So
whatever.
I'll end you. That's what. Yeah, that's going to make him a big hit at parties. Hey, how's everybody doing? And fuck you. You know what I mean? No wonder he was so grumpy. All right, so circling back to the original, we've talked likes, we talked dislikes, so we're good. Big picture legacy. Alex talked a lot about that. Any other thoughts about? I mean, this was a watershed event for all of the filmmaking that followed. In a lot of ways, I kind of liken it to the Beatles in 1964 on the Ed Sullivan Show. Nothing that happened after that in popular music, and you can fight me on this one, has ever been the same. Anything at all has somehow been touched by this, and music has been touched by the Beatles, in my opinion. So that's really the legacy. We've kind of talked our way through it. I'm going to read some notes from the socials, and we'll kind of do some final thoughts, and we'll take it from there. So I did posit out there. I know I would get some responses because who wouldn't have something to say about Star Wars? So I dropped this out there earlier this week before I recorded it. My friend Nick Morrow, who is one of my cosplayer figure buddies from Chicago area, on our Secret Friends Unite Facebook, said, "I have vague memories of seeing it in 77. I assume he may be a couple of years older than me. Mostly the TIE fighter scene." And that really stands out. And it's kind of funny, the TIE fighter scene in particular, as I was watching it, saying, this is kind of dumb that they're doing this. Oh, the TIE fighters, circling around them like flies on a pile of shit, instead of having like a regular dogfight. But I thought this is actually introducing the TIE fighters, because there was the only appearance of the TIE fighters before this in the film was when there's the establishment shot of the Death Star and they're flying in a straight line. So this was
running from the Millennium Falcon.
And running from the Millennium Falcon. Very good. So
I like that scene, if I can spend a moment on there. Because it really shows them going that you're using the 3D space of like space combat, because they have a top gun and a bottom gun, and they see they're going from different angles.
That's a good point.
And then it also goes to show when, like, well, why aren't they doing this? And you're just like, this proved to show that, they're tracking us. And both Leia said it, and when Tarkin said it, it's like they did this for appearances.
Right. Keeping up appearances.
Yeah. And also I feel so bad for those pilots that are like, we're just going to sacrifice these 4 dudes to keep up appearances.
Go die so that we can sell the idea that they got away.
We all know the Empire doesn't care about shit. Watch Andor, and you'll absolutely know. Or Rogue One. They just blow people up. That's okay. We'll Scarif, man, forget about it. Rachel Ostrowski, also on our Secret Friends Facebook, and she was part of our Star Trek chapter here in the Grand Rapids area. I saw it in a packed theater. I was 8. People were standing against the walls, which I think is illegal, since all the seats were taken. I loved it, but it was the 70s. You know, it was the Wild Wild West.
No rules apply.
No rules apply. The best comment comes from my friend Anna, known as AMH Cosplay. She's a very famous cosplayer. You will see her stuff all over all social media. This was on our Secret Friends Unite Discord. My mom took me to see it when it came out. Anna's a few years older than me, so she was probably a teenager. She thought it was very imaginative fantasy, but very silly to think something like this could happen. What was the movie? Of course, I loved it. The droids, the Cantina band, the chessboard on the Falcon, which was it was something we didn't touch upon. That very early kind of CGI. It was just kind of Ray Harryhausen, but really the way it was done was pretty cool and pretty unique.
Also, the Cantina band. Talk about entering the cultural zeitgeist. You just have you play 5 notes. Everyone is going to know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. Exactly. The whole cantina, as Mark Campbell has a great comment about that. He says the cantina was like the Nutcracker suite.
Yes.
All the people moving around. And Mark Campbell is, God, there's another bucket list interview I'd love to do, though I'm sure there's no chance we would ever speak to, that he would waste his time with guys like us, but he would be fascinating to speak to. I would really enjoy it.
And how that scene, they just raided every costume department for masks. Of they went to the Universal Monsters sort of thing of anything we can to try to make aliens cheaply. Is what we're doing.
Boots and vests and weird shirts.
There might even be. I think there's even some random Star Trek pieces in there too.
Oh my gosh!
Yep.
Well, I very famously, and I'm sure we'll tackle this next go around, but the bounty hunter Bosk in the next film is wearing an outfit that came from a Doctor Who episode from the 70s.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So to finish on his comment, we're a little off. She says, I still have the T-shirt transfer of Han and Chewie that I bought at Spencer's back then. I didn't know Spencer's Gift was around in the 70s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That surprises me. Of course, I mean, it could be a vague memory, but I mean that sounds funny. It will always be one of my absolute favorite films. Well, thank you for everybody who responded. We love hearing from the people who follow us on socials, and I hope they listen to the show as well. I will reach out to each one of these people and let them know, hey, listen to the show. You're featured. We talk about you. But yeah, that's about it. All right, so let's circle it back and let's give any parting thoughts. I'm not going to bother doing a rating as we frequently do with movies, Peter, unless you think it's necessary. Doesn't matter to me. But Alex, your parting dissertation on 1977's The Star Wars.
It is really cool to see that there's, like you said before, a moment in time where things changed. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to cinema, there's certain ones of that. You get Star Wars on there. I would argue play The Matrix with the CGI kind of stuff booming after that. And then
The Lord of the Rings would be the next one, I think.
Lord of the Rings, and then going on either the first Avengers or Endgame.
Right.
That things have not been the same since those things happened. And it's really cool to look back and see the forethought that George put into his world building. Because I don't think he is the best writer, but as a storyteller, I think he is fantastic. And the world and the richness that he put in there, not knowing if this would even work, is really cool to see. Right. And then actually capitalize on it.
Right. Mm-hmm. For sure. Absolutely. Peter.
I can't add a whole lot. I will just add that another thing that this film really helped change what happened, and I think for the better, is how soundtracks are done to accompany film.
Yes.
Because it was an inspired choice to do John Williams, and the way that he uses themes and motifs to tell the story through the music, not just as a background, not just as kind of mood setting, but actually use the themes and keys and instrumentation and tempo, all of that to tell the story. So here's the Force theme. Here's it's mysterious because we're learning about it. Here it's sad because Obi-Wan's dead. And here's it's kind of a triumphant return because now Luke is using the Force. So there's a brilliant way that Star Wars and George and John brought music into the forefront of telling the story, which Star Wars is one of the few films that just fully capitalizes on this. A lot of other films then try and do pretty well, but this one knocks the socks off anybody until you get to Howard Shore and the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Going through and Jaws was the only other one where the movie would not work without the score.
Right. And that was John Williams before this. So it's like,
exactly.
So it's like bringing John's skill of telling story in a way that augments, doesn't just kind of like fill. It's not filling space. It augments. It gives you that energy, like in the TIE Fighter dogfight.
It's a character.
Yeah, the music is a character. It helps tell the story. So I think that's it's not the only. Obviously, there's so much that gets that this film does, but that's one of the things that I really, really appreciate in how affected the rest of cinema is allowing music to become a character, to become a secondary storyteller.
People forget that using a classical score was an actually controversial thing.
I remember that too. At the height of the disco era,
at the end of the 70s. Everyone. That was also one of the reasons why the studio was probably so hands off, and actually why it was so good, because it's like they're making all the wrong decisions.
Right, and just and blew everybody away. Let's not forget that it was the aftermath of this that George Lucas negotiated the profits from the action figures, which is what really made him rich. And
the merchandising.
All the money that he made from this is how he was able to do Empire with his own money. Merchandising. Oh my gosh. Well, with that, I'm going to bring it to a close. This has been great. Merchandising. Which I could also, Faux Brown Shirt is too good of a name for the episode. I can't change it. But this has been great. I like
Star Wars, the introspective.
Star Wars, the introspective. I was struggling with, and I was talking to some friends yesterday saying, how can we talk about Star Wars in a way that's not just super generic and boring? And we don't go through the story beats, but we'll talk about big picture stuff and like, what does it really mean? Which is funny because by contrast, both on this show and our Star Trek show, Peter and I like to talk about content and story beats and stuff like that, where it's just too it's too well known to really go that route.
It's not worth doing. There's nothing we could do on that hasn't been said 1,000 times. So why do we need to say it?
Or better, it's possible. Oh my God. Well, Alex, welcome to the family. You are in both.
Appreciate you all so much.
Yeah, with both of us here and certainly over on Code 47. But where do people find you out there in the world? Tell us about your shop.
So the shop is in Lexington, Kentucky. It is a full coffee shop, full game store, card games, tabletop, board games, all that fun stuff. We love to, if there's something you like in the gaming space, you'll probably like it, or if you just like a good cup of coffee. You find me, we'll be there, or if you're online, you see someone with the handle Cad Bane's Hat. That's why I'm there. That's me. I'm not on a lot of social medias. I kind of took off because it was just getting way too toxic. And I'm like, I don't need this in my life.
I hear you.
But if you see a Discord server with a Cad Bane's Hat, that's probably me.
Oh, my goodness. Good stuff. Website for the shop?
chaoticgoodlex.com.
All right. I will add that in the show notes so people can check you out there if they are in the greater Lexington area, which, of course, Peter and I are not. But we at least hope that people listen to us everywhere. So that's awesome. All right. Well, with that, I will wrap us up. God, Peter, I'm starting to forget how I even wrap us up. So I'll use my regular sign. I haven't really decided. Yeah, it's definitely different than from the before times. But as always, I will tell you, thank you for joining us, everyone. Sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
May the force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.